Tobias Churton for you. Years before Dan Brown's research came to light in form of the Da Vinci Code, Oxford-educated British scholar Tobias Churton had long gained notoriety of his work within the Gnostic spirituality realm. I believe I mentioned on the previous program that he was educated at Cambridge. Former Dutch theologian said about Tobias' work for Channel 4, UK, that it would change the minds of millions of people. So how does his research on the controversial figure Aleister Crowley change people's minds? He'll be rejoining the program. Date to be announced to discuss his recent book, Aleister Crowley in India. Now, it's time to bring on Jordan Maxwell. He's an American author, researcher, and theorist. His studies have been concentrated on U.S., European, and Egyptian history. Studies of Horus covered Western organizations in academia, i.e. Skull and Bones, finance, and espionage, cultural technology, and worldwide occult practices. He has influenced such people as Peter Joseph, David Icke, Michael Tesserin. These are all alternative news seekers. Before I bring on Jordan, going to mention that next week, Discussions of Truth will be hosting Lester Lawrence Lessig III. He ran for president under the Democratic Party, that's U.S. president, in 2016. He'll be discussing, amongst other things, net neutrality. He currently teaches at Harvard. Okay, bringing on Jordan Maxwell.
Hello.
Jordan Maxwell, welcome to Discuss the Truth. This is Ian Trottier.
Nice to talk with you, sir.
Nice to speak with you as well. You spent many years of your life in Southern California. You are a Florida native, is my understanding. We broadcast through Windward Radio out of Miami, and you are currently no longer in Southern California. But for listeners to understand, if they're not familiar with your work, you have been at digging into alternative media, if you will, for many decades. I believe looking at 50, 60
years. Yeah, 60.
So give a which let's hope that most people are familiar with you, but I'm sure there's some people that certainly are not. Give a brief introduction, if you will, to who you are and what you do.
Well, my name is Jordan Maxwell. Jordan like the river, Maxwell like the coffee. And I have for some 60 years been speaking publicly, writing books, traveling around the world, speaking to audiences around the world about the occult, which simply means hidden. Nothing evil about the word occult, simply means hidden. And there's so much I found when I was younger that has been hidden from the human family. So I began studying all the hidden knowledge, all the hidden facts of life, all the kind of things that most people do not even know exist. And it became very important to me to find all kinds of interesting things that people didn't know existed. And so I do that now on radio shows. I speak at conferences. I still do. At 80 years old, I'm going to another conference next month in February. And Laughlin, Nevada, I'm speaking at a large international conference there tomorrow in February, dealing with the subject of why the world is in the mess it's in. The hidden connections behind the world scene that are causing the problems that we see. Everybody sees the problem, but very few people actually realize where the problems are originating and who is doing it and why they're doing it and why are there so many wars and violence and revolution, alcoholism, abuse, wars. It's incredible the condition the world of mankind is in. And I do a lot of that kind of research behind the scenes, showing people how they got in the mess, who is controlling it, and what to do to get out of it. So that's who I am, Jordan Maxwell. You go on the web and go to Jordan Maxwell Show. Always add the word show, SHOW, because there are many other websites out there with my name on it because people are wanting to make money off of what I do.
Okay.
But my website is Jordan Maxwell Show.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful introduction, Jordan, and I appreciate your time. What was it that flicked, to use that word, what sparked your interest when you're 80 now, so when you were 19, 20, what got you thinking, hey, wait a second, everything that I'm reading in school, everything I'm being fed through mainstream education is not exactly the way it is. What got you into what you've dedicated your life to doing?
My girlfriend at 19 years old in Los Angeles. I came to Los Angeles at 19 years old, kid, and I happened to go in a restaurant which was near my little room I was renting in North Hollywood, which is about 8 miles north of the city of Hollywood. That's what it's called, North Hollywood. It was a very little Mickey Mouse little town back in 1959. And I went in the restaurant one morning. It was totally crowded. There was no place to sit, no place, because it's the only place in town for breakfast, and everybody in town was there at the same time. But there was a chair at the counter. So I just took the counter chair, and I come to find I'm sitting next to a young lady. I'm 19. She was about 17, 18. And so we got to talking. I liked her, she liked me, and we decided that we would like to hang out together. So we started meeting on Saturday mornings and walking out to have breakfast at the same restaurant, and then we'd go through a movie or whatever. And one night she came over to my place. I only lived about 3 blocks in town, and she lived about 3.5 to 4 blocks in town, but we lived on the same street. So when we would walk home, she knew where I lived, but I never followed her home to know exactly where she lived. And one night she came over and she said, "My father wants to talk to you." And I said, "I'm not interested to talk to your father at all." And she said, "No, my father's a very important man, and he wants to talk to you." And I said, "Well, okay," it sounded interesting. So I went with her. And her father was a very fascinating man. I realized at the moment I saw him, I felt very strange feelings to myself when I was in his company. And so he said to me, he said, "Come on in." And let's see, are you still there?
Yep, I'm listening. You're
Good.
live.
Okay. So anyway, he said, "Come on in." And so I went in, and it was my girlfriend and myself and her father and her younger sister, which was about 10 years old. And we sat, I sat at the sofa with the father. He sat at one end, I sat at the other. And the 2 girls sat on the floor. And we were just talking, just making small talk. He was asking me if I was working and how I like living in California, etc. And I felt very strange about him, something very strange. But he was talking about things I could relate to, so I kind of let it pass. And we're sitting and talking, and then he said to me, he said, "Remember back in Florida when you were back in Florida, your dad built a new back porch, and remember that when your dad built a new back porch? I didn't want to show tears in front of my girlfriend, but that scared me. I was not expecting something like that." And he said, "Well, remember your dad built a new back porch with your uncle and with his brother, and he used green lumber, and it smelled funny. And you noticed it smelled funny at night, the green lumber. And he said, and one night you were in bed, but you got out of bed and you went out on the back porch. And he said, you remember doing that? I didn't shake my head. I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. He said, well, I'll tell you. You were about 8 years old and you went out on the back porch and you sat there and the moon was very bright. It was very full moon. And you said you prayed to God, didn't you? You looked at the moon and you talked to God, didn't you? And I did, and that really scared me. And he said, and what did you say to God? I didn't say anything. I just motioned my head saying, yes, I did talk to God. I remember that. And he said, well, what did you say? I didn't say anything. He said, I'll tell you what you said. You said to God that you wanted to do something with your life that was important. You didn't want to be here just because you happened to be born, but you wanted to be here to accomplish something of importance with your life. Is that what you said? And I said, yes, that's what I said. He said, well, why are you here in California? Why did you come here? I said, I don't know. I just had to. It was something important I needed to do. And he said, that's right. We brought you here.
Wow. Because
you said there was something you wanted to do for God, and so we're going to give you an opportunity to do something if you're up for it. And I said, what are you talking about? He said, you did say you wanted to do something important with your life, didn't you? I said, yes. He said, that's why you're here. We have allowed you to do something with your life. Tonight, I'm going to start you on your journey, he said to me, my girlfriend's father. He said, tonight I'm going to start you on your journey. And you're going to meet people in your life. You're going to learn many things. And eventually you will teach people about the things you have learned. And we're going to see to it that you meet the right people and learn the right stuff and to do something with your life. At the end of your life, it'll be the last part of your life. Where I'm 80 now, and I've been doing this for some 60 years. And so I began meeting people, strange events, synchronicities that were outrageous. And I would meet important people, and they would tell me things in private that I was learning all kinds of strange things about the world I live in that I'd never heard before, and nobody else had ever heard it. But it was overwhelming and obvious that it was true. And a classic example of when I was younger, I had this kind of fascination. I was born Catholic, and there's a time in an 8 to 10-year-old boy or girl's life in the Catholic Church when you have something called confirmation. And it's a confirmation service. And so at confirmation service, we were told the day before in Catholic school, our teacher said, tomorrow night at the confirmation service, Bishop will be here. And everybody in town who's a Catholic will want to be here. So it's going to be a very important night for you children. And then she said, there's a possibility that the bishop might possibly, maybe not, but he might possibly ask you children if you have any questions that he could answer for you now that you're a confirmed Catholic. And she said, and remember, if he does ask, if you have any questions, just remember you don't have any questions. You keep your mouth shut. You don't have any questions. I thought to myself then, my mother doesn't tell me things like that. And so that next night after the service was over, the bishop said, if any of you children have anything you want to ask your bishop, I'll try and answer. So I stood up and I said, yes, Bishop. I said, my father works with torches like a welder.
Right.
And I said, and he lets me play with the torches sometimes. He watches what I'm doing, but lets me get the feel of handling a torch. And I said, and I know how dangerous the torch can be. My question to you is, if I was standing here with the torch in my hand and an angel appeared to me, could I burn that angel if I hit him with the torch? Would it hurt him and burn him? And he said, no, it would not. And I said, why not? And he said, well, first of all, angels are spirits. You don't even see a spirit, much less burn one. If you're going to burn something, it has to be a natural phenomenon, like paper or wood or plastic or something that will burn. But you cannot burn an angel. And I said, why can't I burn that angel? He said, because an angel is a spirit and you can't burn a spirit. And I said, well, then why am I concerned about going to hell where I will burn forever and my spirit will burn forever if you can't burn a spirit? And everybody looked at each other like deer in the headlights. Nobody had ever thought to ask a question so silly that a little 9-year-old thought about it. And so I realized at that time nobody had ever thought about such things. And I have always thought deeply about questions. Why? And most of my questions most adults couldn't handle. And
you stumped him.
Yeah, and so that's why and so after that I realized that the bishop was taken back. He didn't know how to answer that. And so I was told by one of the priests who was standing close to me. I stood up and he said to me in front of everyone, sit down and shut up. So I thought, well, so much for inquisitive youth. So after that, I started getting clever and putting Alka-Seltzer in the holy water. I thought that would that'll get their attention. They think Jesus is coming back or whatever. But I learned to question adults about things that they had never even thought of. And I found out that there's all kinds of interesting knowledge if you just want to know. Yeah. And I wanted to know. Well, then if you want to know a little knowledge, it'll cost you a little bit.
So who was?
If you want to know a little more knowledge, well, then it'll cost you a little bit more. If you want to really get smart and go to college, well, then that's really going to cost you. But you're gaining knowledge. Knowledge is power. And you don't get the power of knowledge for free. You pay for it. And when you start going into the world around you and looking at all of the hidden wisdom and knowledge of the world you live in and how it really works, boy, will you find out that there's a whole world that you didn't know about. And it really became scary at one time, but I got to where I enjoyed looking at questions that no one had ever thought to ask, and then meeting people who knew the answers. So that's what I do now. I do radio shows, and I talk about the institutions that we humans live under and how we got them. Where did our churches come from? Where did our belief systems come from? Where do our ideas in technology, where do we get those ideas and how do we come by those technologies? And the more I learned, the more I found out how much we don't know as humans.
Jordan, I'm gonna pose a question, and we can go so many different angles because you've got so much experience and so much knowledge. But it being a Miami-based program, I want this to be a two-part question for you. If my math is right, you were born in the 1940s, if not the 1940 itself. So you've seen dramatic change in the United States,
ever
in the world, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So one of the common questions I think that's becoming, with the whole terminology of conspiracy theory and deep state is, and this is the two-part question for you, Jordan. How do you define New World Order in your view, in your understanding? And was Fidel Castro, was he a Vatican puppet?
He was obviously a Vatican puppet. My description of New World Order is a Jesuit intrigue going on in the world today in the Vatican as it impacts the governments of the world. The Vatican has a division that is doing nothing but manipulating world politics. And the people who are in charge of that is a military order in the Catholic Church. It's military, not religious. They're called Jesuits. And the Jesuits are a very, very profoundly wise and intelligent people, guys who know how to run the world. They know how banks work. They know how insurance companies work. They know how military thinks. They know how the world works. And they're behind the scenes manipulating governments, banking institutions, wars, crime, organized crime, mafiosis, underworld organizations, all connected to the Catholic Church by the Jesuits. And that's a hell of a subject, boy, when you get into the Jesuit intrigue going on throughout the world with assassinations of presidents and fires and wars and violence that break out around the world. It's all been planned by the powers that be in the Vatican and are being executed around the world by Jesuits. That's what I call the New World Order. It's really quite a dark story.
How does the New World Order, as springing from the Vatican, how does that parallel, if you will, with the Elders of Zion or some of these conspiratical, very powerful Jewish organizations?
Yes, well, you need to know that both of those organizational arrangements, the Vatican and World Judaism, there is a story that is really going to shock people when they see it for the first time, because nobody has been able to talk about it in public. But there is a definite connection between the religion of the Judaism, the normal, regular Jewish religion in the world today, around the world, and they have different factions as Christians do too. But generally speaking, the Jewish religion is connected directly with the Nazi religion of Adolf Hitler. And Nazism and Judaism are working together. And it's an incredible story when you first are introduced to the idea. You think this is ludicrous, but it's not ludicrous. It's life. And you begin to see the connection behind the scenes because the German people share a common ancestry with the Jewish people. Judaism and Germany are very intrinsically connected behind the world scene. So the things you see going on in Germany today, just look for Jewish influence in these occurrences, whatever it is in war and the decisions that the Germans are making. I mean, because Adolf Hitler, he made it famous. He made the idea famous for the Nazis not to intermarry with the common people. They were a special and holy priesthood, and their symbol was a swastika. Well, today in Israel, if you go to Israel or go on the web and type in swastika in Israel, you will see there's a lot of different synagogues that have swastikas in mosaic rendering on the floor, on walls, showing swastika. The same Nazi kind of swastika you see in Nazi Germany are in synagogues in Israel. And in Israel, a synagogue is spelled S-I-N-A-G. But in the rest of the world, the Gentile world is spelled S-Y-N-G. So there's a difference between S-I-N and S-Y-N. And there's a reason why, because Israel is promoting the worship of sin, S-I-N, which was a Babylonian Sumerian god in the ancient prehistoric world. In that area of the world we call today the land of Canaan is called Israel. But Israel thousands of years ago was called the land of Canaan. And in the land of Canaan they worshipped a god called Baal, B-A-A-L. Baal was a sun. And the reason why the people of the ancient Israel call the land of Canaan is because they realized it was heating the earth and giving us light, and it was our risen Savior. Of course, it was your risen Savior. It doesn't. Nothing on the earth lives without the sun, without the heat and the warmth. So, so once you see the connection between Judaism and Nazism, that's when you see the idea that Jews do not want to intermarry with Gentiles because they are superior people and they are God's chosen people, and God said don't have anything to do with the evil Gentiles. So therefore, like Hitler, one of the most important things about being a Nazi is that you don't want to intermarry or have anything to do with the Gentiles. You have only your life to live with other Nazis. If you're going to get married, that's fine. You don't have to get married. But if you're going to get married, you marry another Nazi. And so all kinds of interesting connections behind the scenes in monetary, education, religion, theocracy, all connect Judaism to the Nazi Party. And why was there so much hatred and so much destruction and violence against the people in Germany by the Germans? Well, the most important part is that if you go back into German history, you will see the man who actually got Hitler involved in Nazism. His name was, what was his name? Do you recall the man?
No.
What was his name?
I know that Hitler was raised Catholic, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was raised Catholic, and that's why the Pope still today wears a Jewish yarmulke. The little skull cap that the Jews wear, that's what the Pope wears. There's a reason. There's a connection between the Roman Catholic religion. Ancient Rome's religion was called Catholic. Why? Because Catholic is a word in Latin which means over the whole earth. It's everywhere. So therefore we could say the air is Catholic because it's everywhere. People are Catholic. Why? Because they are everywhere. They're all over the map. They're all over the globe. So anything that's all over the globe is called Catholic. And Latin means universal. It's everywhere. And so Rome connected the whole world under the Caesar, under the empire, and became known as a Roman religion of the world, or the world religion of Rome. Roman Catholic. Catholic means universal. And so, but I like, when I'm talking to a new audience, I like to draw attention to some of the little Mickey Mouse things that are around us that we don't know. That's kind of interesting. It catches people's attention. For instance, a lot of people do not know that when you are driving and the police pull you over, you got the lights come on behind you and you pull over, and the cop walks up to the car, and after talking with you, he decides to give you a ticket. And he's writing out this ticket. Well, that's the same thing you get when you go to Sears to buy a pair of shoes. They're going to give you a ticket, and you're expected to pay the ticket. And so when the cop is writing out the ticket, the police are writing out the ticket, he's writing it out, and he's filling it out himself, and he signs it. Then he hands it to you in the car, and you sign it. Now it is expected that you will pay the ticket. but that's not the way it works. You are a co-signer on a ticket in commerce. It's a commercial document. It represents money. Somebody's going to pay because it's a ticket in commerce, and it belongs to the cop as his ticket, and he signed it first. So you are an undersigner. You are a co-signer. And the way you can handle it, I mean, I'm not suggesting anybody do what I'm saying, but just understand you can do it. I've seen it done, where you take that ticket and photocopy it and put it with an affidavit and send it to the Secretary of State in which you live and tell the Secretary of State, I am sorry, I made a mistake. I signed as a co-signer on a ticket that I did not want to sign. I did not realize I was doing that until today, so I would like to be dropped off of this ticket. I don't want to co-sign it. And so then the Secretary of State will send that letter with the ticket to your Department of Commerce in your state that handles corporate business, and they will send out an article to the police department, and it will go to the end. So that ticket goes to the policeman that wrote it to you,
right.
and he has to pay it, not you.
Interesting.
You are a co-signer. You decided not to co-sign, so that means he's got to pay it.
And that relates to the straw man concept?
Yes. Well, it relates to it, yeah, but basically it does, but there's a big subject we could talk about for 8 hours, and they'd even cover anything twice. There's a whole world of knowledge that we just have never been told as Americans. Most people today are referred to as U.S. citizens, but if you look it up correctly in the law dictionary, a U.S. citizen is not considered an American. You are a United States citizen, a U.S. citizen, not an American. Therefore, you do not have the protections of an American. You are not living under the Constitution. You're not living under the Bill of Rights. You don't have any rights. Why? Because in 1860s, we had a civil war in this country, which we are told was extraordinarily bloody and very, very violent. And after that war was over, the United States was all kinds of things except united. The one thing we were all sure of is we're not united. We just got to having a bloody war, killing our fellow Americans.
Yeah.
So we're not united. So therefore, the powers that be, the banking families and the big shots who run the country, from behind the scenes, the organized criminal element that was running the country, decided, well, all right, we're not going to be organized anymore into one country that's united. We're not going to be united. So how are we going to run the country if it's not united? Because you still got millions of people who want to go to school, who want to eat, who want to have jobs, who want to buy cars. You've got people who are going to live whether you like it or not. So what are you going to do with all these people if we're not united? It was brilliantly decided by some really crafty criminals, that instead of being a republic, the United States as a republic, a governmental system, no, we will take it out of the United States governmental system, and we will found a corporation, a privately owned company. And back east, it was a company formed as a corporation, and it was called the United States Incorporated, United States Corporation. And it was decided that anyone who was a member of that corporation worked for the corporation called United States. And so you became known as a U.S. citizen. And so a U.S. citizen is not an American. A U.S. citizen is someone who works for a corporation. and the corporation is called United States Incorporated. And of course, all corporations have to have a president. So we got a president. And according to the law, all corporations have to have a vice president. Okay, so we got a vice president. All corporations must have a secretary treasurer. Okay, we have a secretary treasurer. But that doesn't mean that it's a republic. You're not living in the United States of America. You're living in a corporation like Ford Motor Company, like General Electric. It's a big corporation. And so, therefore, you are a U.S. citizen. And if you come into this country, you think you're slipping in across the border, say from Mexico, you're coming in illegally, you don't realize what you are doing. You think you're slipping in and being clever to slip into the country. But what you're actually doing is you're slipping into the grounds of a privately owned corporation called United States Corporation. So when you come across the border, it's like you going to a city and breaking into Ford Motor Company. You go in at 2 o'clock in the morning, you go in and bust the window and get inside the corporation. And you think that's clever, but you are illegally inside the property of a corporation. And that's when you come across the border. You are illegally inside of a company's property. And what you don't know is called a corporation.
So Jordan, go ahead. You got something else? Continue with what you.
I was just going to say, and because of that, you can, because your body, you broke into a corporation's property, they can put a lien on you. A lien like a mechanic's lien. If I paint your house and you don't pay me, I can put a lien on your house. And so there is a lien put on you by the corporation called United States Corporation. You don't know that, of course. You're not made aware of any of this. But there is a lien on you, and therefore you become known as an alien. An alien. A lien has been put on you. You're not an alien from another world, from another planet. No, a lien has been put on your body. So you are an alien. And like I said, I don't expect anyone. I would go so far as to say I would highly recommend just educating yourself as to how the world really works. But do not try and do anything about it, because the powers that be over this country are so ruthless, and they have no care about the American people. They only care about documented workers. They only care about the people who are living here who are U.S. citizens. A U.S. citizen is not an American. He does not have the protections of a constitution. And besides, most people don't know there are 2 separate constitutions in America. One is the Constitution for the United States, and there's another Constitution of the United States of America. Well, there's a big difference between for and of, and you'll find that out when you go to court. And then you find out why it is you have to go to court, because you play tennis on a court. You play basketball on a court. That's why you go to court, because it's a ball game. It's just a game. So when you go to court, both sides have their team. We call them a team of lawyers. And your team of lawyers gets up and throws the ball back in the other guy's court. And that team of lawyers quickly picks up the ball and throws it back at you. And so, therefore, it's a ball game. It's a game. And in all games where there's money and a lot of important things going on, you're going to have an umpire. So the umpire wears black in a ball game. And so the umpire in the game of law wears a black robe. Black robes were always associated with the planet Saturn. A black robe is called a Saturnian robe. It is a robe associated with the planet Saturn. And why? Because Saturn was known in the ancient world as being an inhibitor, one who could hold you back and teach you a lesson. And so gangs, motorcycle gangs and gangs are called Saturnian gangs, meaning they are able to harm you. They're able to kidnap and harm you because of Saturnian. That's what Saturn was known to do in the ancient world. He would hold you back and teach you a lesson. And therefore the military was Saturnian, the church was Saturnian, the police department was Saturnian. And why do you go to court? Well, like I said, you go to court because you play tennis on a court. Now, how do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. You think these words are by chance? They're not by chance. There's a reason why when you play tennis, you're playing with a racket. And when you go to court, it's a tennis game, and it's got one team against the other. And the judge is a referee. He wears the black robe, which is the black robe of the planet Saturn. Saturn is the official god of the Jewish religion today. Saturn is the god of Judaism. So this is why so many Jews are into court, into law, and into business. Jews, you will find, mostly are into being lawyers. And that's why, is because the god of Judaism is the planet Saturn. Saturn is referred to as the god of the black robe. That's why Catholic priests wear black robes. Judges wear black robes. Darth Vader wears black robes.
Yeah.
And all the evil underworld, darkness of night kind of people wear black robes. The priests of these rituals wear black robes. It's just fascinating when you see how the world actually works, and that you yourself are an animal. You are not considered by law in America to be a man or a woman. You are not a man or a woman. You are an animal, and you see that in the way that the government treats you. You are considered to be an animal, and there's a whole study of that concept, and so many things going on in my mind I'd like to talk about. That it's very important for you to understand that male and female on your identification. When you're signing and you're showing your driver's license or anything like that, when you go and buy a new car, and you buy the car with your money, you get something with the car. It's called an operator's manual.
Right.
Okay, but that's because you, at the time you bought the car, you're buying it for yourself. So you are referred to as an operator of the automobile. But if you're buying that car or that truck or that motorcycle or that tank or whatever it is you're buying with wheels, if you're buying it to make money, you're no longer an operator. According to the law, if you're going to use those wheels in commerce, you are a driver. You are a truck driver, a bus driver. You are driving, which means you are making money with them. And so now it's a business. You're making money with those wheels, therefore you are now in business, and therefore you have to have a license to do business. So now, if you're going to use that car as a cab, you better get a driver's license. Not a license to maneuver the car around the city. No, a license because you're doing business. It's called a business license. And so when you get married, most people don't know it's a business, pure and simple.
Interesting.
And so it is quite simply a business. Well, if I see you come out of a restaurant one night, and I happen to be out in the parking lot, I see you come out with a particular woman, and I say to you the next day, you know that woman you were with last night? Yeah. And you say, yep. I said, she is bad trouble. You better watch out for her, because she is nothing but bad company. And you say, mind your own business. business, company, and you're gonna get married, and she's gonna be your partner. These are words that are used in the world of commerce, a partner with business and company. So all of a sudden, mind your business means I'm in business, and therefore, if I'm going to get married, it's a business venture. That if you make the wrong decision and marry the wrong partner, well, if you marry the wrong partner, you're not going to go to God. You're going to court, and you better bring everything you own, because it's nothing but a business. It's always just been a business. But if your business doesn't happen to work out, well, that's your problem. You need to think about who you're going to be partnering with in business world.
So Jordan,
And yeah,
Jordan, has the United States ever gained its true independence? Had it ever
No.
gained? It never
No.
gained its independence.
No, we never gained it. Excuse me. No, we never gained our independence.
You speak of Judaic laws, and then versus if we take
Yeah.
the Roman Empire, and then the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire through Germany,
Yeah.
and then certainly the British Empire versus the Spanish Empire, giving birth to what is considered perhaps the U.S. Empire, but of all these different layers and elements of what's gone into creating this corporation that is known as this
The United States.
Yeah, right. Its main influence is the former, which still exists, I argue, because of the Vatican and the strength that the Vatican has over international politics. It's influence through the Vatican, or is it influenced by what you're bringing on in regards to these Saturnistic laws that come through Judaism? So is the United States influenced more in the way it conducts itself, the corporation there, more through the influence of Jesuit or Catholic laws, or that of Judaic,
Rome.
Jewish laws?
Well, United States is a Roman entity. We are, in point of fact, by law, considered to be the new Rome. The new Rome. Why? Because when Caesar overtook Britannia, when he was able to overtake all of Europe, and finally he had to go across the water into Britain and take over Britain before he would feel satisfied he's got everything. So he went into Britain and set up the Roman Empire's rule in Britain. And where was that? Where was the headquarters for Caesar's government in Britain? It was in a city called York, England. And so therefore the Vatican, or Caesar of Rome, was ruling Britannia all over the world from York, England. Well, today we have a worldwide organization like Caesar's operation in New York. It's called the Empire State. And New York is the home of the new United Nations. The United Nations has a wreath around it, the same wreath that the Caesars would wear when they conquered a country. After the war, they would wear these wreaths on their head. And so the one thing I want to get to quickly is that we humans are not considered to be man or woman. You're not considered to be a man or a woman. Why? Because if you go to the Styles magazine, the United States Styles magazine is published in Chicago for the U.S. government. And what the Styles magazine is, it tells you all the words and terms that are used in federal and state and international governments, and what those words mean when used by the federal government. not by you. They don't mean the same thing. But if you want to know what the words mean, get a Styles magazine. You can buy it from the U.S. government. Chicago Styles magazine. And it will tell you what words mean in government. So when you walk into a courtroom, you better know what you're talking about or you're going to jail. Because if you use a term that you think you understand out on the street with the rest of us, that's not what it means in a court. It doesn't mean that at all. They already know what those words mean. And so the government publishes it for you to study. And so there's, and my goodness, there's so many things I'd like to tell you about. When you sign a piece of paper, it tells me whether you are a man or a woman or an animal. And the way you can tell the difference is the way your name is spelled. If you use all uppercase letters, that represents you as a corporation. You are a company. You are a corporation if you see your name in all capital letters. And that's what you have on your driver's license, your insurance company, your identification, period. All your ID is always in all capital letters. Why? Because all capital letters internationally around the world means it's a corporation, a company. And you are a company. You are a corporation. And therefore, you are a corporation and your name is in all capital letters. And that's why when you are as a company, when you pass away and you leave this world, you are now a company that's been defunct. You're out of business. And so that's why when you drive by a graveyard, you will see the names of the people who were working as a company, a corporation. And on the tombstones, the names are in all capital letters. And so therefore, that means that they were a corporation, but now they're no longer in business. They're defunct in the business world. They're out of business. They're dead. And so where does all this come from? It comes from something called maritime admiralty, the law of water. There are two kinds of law on the earth, and most people do not realize that. There's two kinds of law on the earth, going all the way back to proto-Roman Empire. The international bankers or politicians of this world, the popes, have always known there are two kinds of law. A law of the land and the law of the water. The law of land is called common law. It's the law of the land, which means it's the law of the people who live on a particular piece of land. But you can do things in South Africa on the land that you can't do in Russia. You can do things here in America you can't do in Spain, because every country has its own law of the land. And that means the customs of the people that live on the land. But then there is another kind of law called the law of the sea, the law of water, maritime admiralty. The law of water is very powerful because it represents money. Money goes through your hands like water. No, money is water by international agreement. Money, going back to the Roman Empire, was called a liquid asset. So that's why when you have money, you put it in a bank. Why do you have a bank? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is an ebb and flow. It comes in, it goes out. Comes in, it goes out, like the waves of the sea. And so money is considered to be liquid asset, and therefore it has a flow. And it comes in, it goes out. And so you put it into a bank, which is a river bank. And the river bank directs the flow of the current. And we call it currency.
That makes a lot of sense. Continue, please.
Well, I was just going to say it. So when a ship pulls into port, big ocean going, the big trading ships of the world. When those big ships come into port, everything on that ship has to be accounted for. So therefore, let's say a ship comes in with $700 million worth of Toyota televisions or whatever. Well, they're going to have paperwork done on each and every item. Each item has to be itemized. Does it have 2 legs? Does it have 2 arms? Does it have 2 eyes? What color is it? Where is it from? And that's why when you are born, you have to have all that information on a piece of paper, and you will find out your birth certificate is actually on banking security paper, on legitimate bank security paper. And look on the bottom left-hand corner of the document. It will tell you that this document called your birth, it's a certificate for you. So it's called a birth certificate. And why? Because when a ship pulls in, where it stops and where it parks at is called its berth, called berthing a ship. And so your mother was a ship, and she's in a maritime admiralty. And your father, he was the man, he was the one who manufactured. And your mother was in what's the word? Your father manufactured, the mother was in labor. She was building what he has manufactured. And therefore, you are the product of a maritime admiralty relationship. You came out of your mother's water. You came down the birth canal and came out of her water. So since you came out of water, you are considered to be an international maritime admiralty product. And therefore, you have to have a certificate of telling us who you are and how much you weigh and what color are you and who do you belong to, and etc. And so it's all called a birth certificate. And so you have a birth certificate. What you don't know your birth certificate is worth approximately $7 to $9 million on the New York Stock Exchange. You don't know that. Why? Because we never told you. You're not supposed to know that. I know that because I've sat with the international bankers and heard how this stuff works. Your birth certificate is worth millions of dollars on the stock market of the world, on the New York Stock Exchange. If you call one of those stock companies like Standard & Poor, one of those companies that keeps track on all stock, period, and you tell them that you were cleaning your grandmother's garage and you found this old certificate for a stock and want to know if it's any good, they'll say, yes, give us that stock number. You take your Social Security card and look on the back of the Social Security card. The numbers on the front show that you are a member of a corporation called United States Corporation, and that's your connection to your employment, is that numbers on the front of a Social Security. But on the back of a Social Security card is another set of numbers, and if you take that back of the Social Security card and line it up with the numbers, the serial numbers on a $1 bill, you will see, if you line them up, lay the back of the Social Security card just above the numbers on the dollar bill, you will see they match. They all have letters and numbers. And so the numbers on the back of your Social Security card represents your flesh and blood body. Your body is on the New York Stock Exchange, being bought and sold every day by big corporations. They are using you as a security. And that's why when you get old and you can't work, you're going home to retire and you're not going to work anymore, they give you something called Social Security. Why? Because you and your body is a security worth millions of dollars on the stock exchange, which the corporation called United States has been buying and selling you around the world. If they owe Germany, if they owe, America owes another country millions of dollars, they'll put your birth certificate in. And that's worth $8 to $10 million or $7 to $10 million. And so they're paying off bills around the world, big bills, with your birth certificate. That's why if you have a daughter and she's getting married, and the guy she's marrying is going to be very wealthy, coming from a very wealthy family, you say things like, well, he's of good stock.
Right.
And I say, what is she marrying, a cow? Is she marrying a bull or a cow? No, she's marrying a very nice young man who's very wealthy, and he's of good stock. Well, does that tell me that your daughter is of common stock? She's just common, but he has money, so he's of good stock. And so once you begin to see how humans are made into animals, we are considered to be animals by the corporation. And your social security number on the back of your social security card represents your blood. And when you find out that you cannot get money for that, even though your social security companies in New York will tell you it's worth $7 million or $9 million. It's usually right around $7 to $9 million per person. And they know how much you're worth, and they can use that $9 million. Well, it'd be smart if you used it. If
right.
you have a home and you can't pay for it, then what are you going to do? You're going to go try and borrow money to pay out the home, so now you'll be in trouble for the rest of your life. No, why don't you just use the money that's in the stock market? You got 7 to 9 million in the stock market on the back of your social security card. Why don't you just sell 1 million? Tell the security companies in New York, sell off 1 million. Give me $1 million. I need $1 million. They can then sell off that 1 million off of your 9 million. Now you're only worth 8 million. Well, who cares? You just got $1 million handed to you based on your social security card. And you cannot get cash. You cannot do that. That's why I'm saying again, don't try and do anything about what I'm telling you. Just learn about it. Educate yourself how the world really works. Then you will see there's no reason for you to lose your home or your jet plane or whatever else you bought, your yacht, and now you don't have the money to pay for it. Why don't you just pay it off with the credit that's on your it's on your stock in the New York Stock Exchange. It's worth millions. So if you sell off, say $1 million off of that stock, that pays all your bills and you're home free, and you're still worth $8 million. You can always go back and get some more if you needed it.
So how do you do that?
You have to sign an affidavit that's on the International Maritime Admiralty Law, and there is a way to do that on the New York Stock Exchange. I think if you go on, because there have been many intelligent guys who work on the stock exchange who know what I'm talking about, and they were telling you, if you go on YouTube and just put in on the YouTube, type in birth certificate, the value of birth certificate, or millions for a birth certificate, something like that. Put something with birth certificate and money in the bank, and it will pop up on YouTube with lectures by people who are in banking, who are in the stock market trading, and they would tell you about how your body is worth millions on the stock exchange, but you're not being told that. Why? Because the government, the U.S. corporation, is a privately owned company, and you're working for it, and so therefore they're using your body to create money for them they need for their corporation. Well, hell, I need money for my corporation. So where do I get it? I get it from the same place they get it. The government gets it. Get it out of my Social Security card.
Jordan, what's your relationship to the British former BBC employee and alternative researcher journalist David Icke. What is your relationship to David?
I originally, back in 1992, was working at a company in San Diego. I was pretty much running a company. I was what they call an ideologue for a very big publishing house. I was the one who was hired to come up with the ideas. And I had, because of that, I had financing for the company through the lawyers at the foundation for the company. It was called the Truth Seeker Company. And Truth Seeker had like $24 million, and they could spend the interest on $24 million, but they could not spend the principal. Yeah. And so when they brought me in to be the ideologue for the company, I'm the one that was expected to come up with the ideas on how the company could make money, which I did. I had all kinds of brilliant ideas about how to spend their money and how to make money off of them, because, you make money if you got money. If you don't have any money, you're not making anything. Yeah. And so I had someone tell me about David Icke in London, and he was talking about the same kind of thing I was. They said that I ought to know about him because he's on the same page I am, talking about the same things I am. And so I listened to a couple of his recordings on tape, VHS tape, and I liked him. I liked his look. I liked listening to him. I thought he was very intelligent. So I told the people who told me about him, I said, tell David to call me. I want to talk to him. When he called, I said, David, why don't you come to America? If you come to America, I will help finance you. I'll try and make you famous the best I can. I'm in a position to do that. I've got a lot of money that I can wheel and deal with, and I'm running a company that's promoting truth. And it looks like that's what you are, the truth seeker. So come to America and I will finance you, which he immediately did. He came over. I brought him over to San Diego. I met with him. I suggested to the lawyers at the foundation that they ought to put money on him. They need to give him money to do this, to travel, to set up his publishing, to get him published by him. And I got my publisher friend in Los Angeles. I brought him down to do the publishing for my company. And so I started because I became very famous. I became famous back in the 1990s, early 1990s, about being someone who will finance anybody who wants to do something to awaken their fellow man. If you're a researcher, a writer, an author, and you've got something important to tell the world, I will finance you. I will get you money. I will get your books published. I will get you on speaking tours, because the company was being run by a foundation that had $24 million. So I had plenty of money to do what I wanted to do.
That's excellent. So that's what is Jordan? What is your outlook for the United States, being American, as one begins, as your words resonate with people, and like you said, we can spend hours. You've got so much knowledge, and as an American begins to resonate, and as you've mentioned, becomes awake, if they do. And you've urged Americans not to do anything about it, but yet to just educate themselves. What can they do to better understand the world they live in?
I think it is better for the world of mankind to educate itself first. Because once the real criminals who run the United States Empire Corporation, once that these international bankers realize that 98% of the country are well aware, highly intelligent, well-read, and they know what the name of the tune is, they know what a court is, they know why they're called judges, They know what the law actually says and what it doesn't say. And once these people who are behind the scenes, who are manipulating our country, realize themselves that they are in serious trouble, because everybody out there in the audience already knows who you are and what you're doing. And so that's why I say educate yourself. Don't try and do anything about the situation. Why? Because we are living in what the Bible, there's a Bible scripture in the Old and the New Testament, in the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation talks about the time of the end. And that is where I believe we are. We're in the time of the end. End of what? I would say we're in the time of the end of the Roman Empire on the earth. I think one more time Rome is going to fall, and when she falls, she's going to take the world with her. Because most people don't realize the United States finances its own enemies. We need to have an enemy. We have to have an enemy. Why? Because you've got a huge military budget of billions and billions of dollars. And well, why would you need a big budget of a military industrial complex if you don't have anybody who's an enemy? Who could be an enemy to America? Who could be an enemy to this country? China? I don't think so.
Right.
China would have already tried something a long time ago. Russia? Well, Russia did try, but she's no longer around. She was the Soviet Union, the World Communist Party. Well, most people do not know that how communism got started in Russia. This was in Argosy magazine back in the 60s, early 60s. Actually, it may have been in the 50s, late 50s. I remember an article in Argosy magazine, tremendously interesting magazine of all kinds of interesting stuff. But Argosy magazine had an article about the Federal Reserve in Washington, D.C. that would print the money. The Federal Reserve was sending money to Russia through Germany, to Russia, to the Communist Party in Russia, because the Communist Party didn't have any money. They're good at acting like they're going to do this or that, but they don't have any money to actually feed themselves and do anything.
Yeah.
So America has to send them the money and have to feed them, like we were feeding rice to China under Mao Zedong. America was feeding rice from Texas, sending the rice to China to feed the people, because the people were working under communism, and communists have never been able to finance anything. They are looking for a handout. That's all they're good for, is to look for a handout and manipulate and exploit poor people and rip them off. And so that's what the Communist Party has done. It's ripped off America. It's ripped off all kinds of poor people who are being ripped off continually by the communist government. And under the Democratic Party, today we have two parties. We have a left wing and a right wing. Why do we call it left wing and right wing politics? It's because we are recognized around the world by the American eagle. And eagles only have two wings, a left wing and a right wing. And so therefore we are a left wing and right wing country. But under the Democratic Party, you are a Marxist, Leninist, Soviet communist. If you are a Democrat today simply means Marxist, Leninist, Soviet communist. And I can see why the Marxist, Leninist, Soviet communists would hate Trump, because he doesn't need handouts like the communists do.
Yep.
He doesn't need handouts. He knows how to handle big corporations and handle big money himself. He doesn't need your help. And so therefore the communists look at him as a typical American supremacist who comes into their country like Russia and overthrew their government. They thought they were doing great until the United States had enough, and we were sending. Oh, and I forgot to finish that point I was going to make, that when communism was being founded in the Soviet Union, the Federal Reserve wanted to keep sending millions and countless millions of dollars to the Soviet Union to give them the money to feed the troops, to feed the people, to buy things they needed, to buy the equipment, tanks and planes and whatever else the Soviet Communist government needed to be a Soviet Communist government. They don't have the money, they don't have the brains, they don't have anything. So how are they going to buy a big military and pay their big standing army and the standing military? The U.S. said, we'll pay them. We'll pay you. Tell us how much you need each week, and we'll send it to you. So the Federal Reserve was printing money for the Soviet Union. And the way they did this was very interesting. They knew that the Federal Reserve knew that if they started sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Russia, to the Red Square and Moscow, then it's going to look awful funny. That's going to look very strange to people. Why are the Federal Reserve sending money to the Red Square? By the millions, by the countless millions going into Russia, coming from the United States banking court fraternity. So that what they decided to do at the Federal Reserve is they sent over, through Germany, they sent over the plates. They sent over the plates that you need to print the money. So this way they don't have to make hundreds of thousands of $100 bills. No, just send the plates over. The Russians have their own plates. They got their own printing presses. They just don't have the plates. And so you send over the plates with the paper, a particular kind of fabric paper that was not just paper. It's a fabric paper. And you send over the particular kind of ink, and you show them in Russia how to print the money for it to look American. And so that's how the Soviet Union grew and became a very powerful empire. It grew because the Federal Reserve had sent over the plates so that they could just run off as much money as you need. If you need to, do 3 8-hour shifts and just pump out the money like we do over here. We just run the hell out of the printing press, and we got plenty of money. Yeah, but it's worthless. Yeah, but then so is the worthless. The rest of the world's worthless too. But it looks like we got plenty of money.
So this makes me think of Anthony Sutton, and this actually marks the 3 years that we've been doing this program. And Anthony Sutton, former Stanford Hoover Fellow, is basically a foundation piece in the program. I'm sure you're familiar with Anthony. Would you say
Anthony Sutton, I would say, was one of the most brilliant minds I've ever come across. He was sensational. I love reading Anthony Sutton. He had an incredible amount of information he was putting out there for everyone. Where the money came from to start the Ford Motor Company, where the money came from to start the banks, the international banking cartel, where did they get the money? Where did Rothschild get his money? We're always talking about how wealthy Rothschild was. But what we don't know is Rothschild was appointed by the Vatican to oversee Vatican finances and bills. Rothschild was brought into the Vatican to oversee the Vatican's finances. And so that's why today the Rothschilds are so wealthy. Because if you are handling hundreds of millions of dollars daily, every day, paying off bills, buying countries, assassinating presidents, and doing this kind of stuff where you need big money. Well, that's how he learned. That's how Rothschild learned how to handle big money. He was handling the Vatican's money.
So,
and don't forget this too. The Vatican has something we call the Holy Father. The Holy Father is a Holy Father. Why? Because he connects us with God. He's the original Godfather. The Holy Father who talks to God. He is the Godfather. If you get what I mean.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
And so that's why industrialists, politicians, the wealthiest of the wealthy. They go to Vatican so that they can get on their knees in front of the Pope and bow down on their knees and kiss his ring and whatever else he's putting out there for them to kiss. And they go along with it and they kiss his ring. Why? Because they know they're not stupid. They know that the Holy Father is the Godfather. He's in Rome. He speaks for Caesar, the Tiberius Caesar, the August one, for Augustus Caesar, out of New York, the Empire State. And so in New York, they had two World Trade Centers. They were called Jachin and Boaz, two Masonic symbols called Jachin and Boaz. Jachin and Boaz were two tall structures going into the big temples of Egypt. They always had two tall structures on each side of the entrance, and they were referred to in the ancient world as Jachin and Boaz. And so they knocked down Jachin and Boaz in New York. Who did that? Who knocked down the World Trade Center? All we know is that the Pope came the next year after the mess was cleaned up. The Pope came to New York and went to the center for where the World Trade Center stood. And it was, and what day did he go to New York? That's very, very important. What day did he go to New York to the World Trade Center? He went on April 29th. And that was Adolf Hitler's birthday.
Interesting.
Yeah, Adolf Hitler's birthday. And when the Prince Edward got married just recently with the girl in England, what was their birthday? March 29th, the same day that Adolf Hitler's birthday. They got married in England. The prince and his new wife got married on Adolf Hitler's birthday. Most people are not interested, couldn't care less, and have no idea what the implications of that is, except the Holy Mother. She knows. Queen Mum knows why her son got married on Adolf Hitler's birthday. And I'm just telling you that there's a lot of things going on in this world that we are not privy to know. And if you do know, you need to keep your mouth shut, because it's very dangerous to know things in America that you're not supposed to know, especially if you start opening your mouth to tell the people. If the people ever found out what was really actually going on in America, you would not believe what it would cause. There would be a revolution overnight, I'm sure. People would not believe what is actually happening in America today, and why the Democratic Party is so adamant about wanting to kill the president, get rid of him, impeach him, fire him, throw him into prison, or if you have to, kill him. That's what they said years ago. Kill the president. I was just thinking to myself, can you imagine what would have happened if when Obama, the known Marxist-Leninist Soviet communist Obama, operating as a Soviet agent in America, if somebody had said to kill Obama because he was a traitor to America, working for the Soviet Union communist movement, can you imagine what would have happened? My God, there would have been riots everywhere. But it's interesting if you go back to the 30s and 40s and look at all of the communist countries, all the countries that came under world communism. Almost every one of them had as an official title, the official title was the People's Democratic Republic. You have the People's Democratic Republic of China, the People's Democratic Republic of North Korea, the People's Democratic Republic of Cuba. Everything was always the People's Democratic Republic. Democratic is very important when you understand what it means in relation to Soviet communism. Russia was called the People's Democratic Union, like the Painters Union. the Carpenters Union, all the unions were all part of the People's Democratic Republic of Union. So you had the Painters Union, the Woodworkers Union, Carpenters Union, and the Soviet Union. It's all part of the unionizing of labor in America, of which the mafia is very good at controlling.
Right.
And therefore, you begin to see, wait a minute, there's a connection here between building and the unions and the labor and money for the labor, and who decides how much the labor is going to get, and who decides how much they're going to make, and who gets what job. It's all covered by the unions. And my God, everybody seems to know that the unions are up to their throat with organized crime. You can't build anything on the East Coast, like they said, without doing business with the mob. So that's the name of the tune.
So
how many people know that there is a pyramid the size of Cheops Pyramid in Egypt, which I've been in? I was blessed in the King's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. I was in there. But how many people know that there is a pyramid in the Atlantic Ocean floor, right off the coast of Florida?
Yeah,
it's on the floor. It's on the Atlantic floor, and it's 10 miles north of the island of Bimini. Bimini is one of the islands in the Caribbean. 10 miles north is an area called the Bahama Banks. The Bahama Banks. And there's a pyramid sitting on the floor of the Atlantic Ocean today. You can go out and see it. Nobody seems to have asked the question, who builds pyramids on the ocean floor of the Atlantic? And how come the great tornadoes and storms and hurricanes originate in the Bermuda Triangle? And how come if you're flying in a plane and you fly into the Bermuda Triangle, coming from any direction to going any direction, if you enter the Bermuda Triangle in a plane, your compass on the ship, on the boat, on the plane, your compass will immediately go crazy. It will not point to magnetic north like compasses are supposed to. All compasses on airplanes, the big airplanes, the big cruises that roam around the world, and commercial airliners, the captains will tell you, as soon as you fly into the Bermuda Triangle, the compass points directly to true north. True north is not the magnetic north at the North Pole. No. True north is in the sky. It's in the heavens. And you have to know where it is in the heavens. And so I'm just saying that there's a whole lot of things that we don't know. Americans that have not been told, people of the world have no idea in the world where things have come from, why you have to pay bills. Why is it when you die, your name is in all capital letters? You are a defunct corporation, and your mother was in labor building something your father had manufactured.
Jordan, what is the, of all your years of research, 61 years of intense research, what is the most astonishing message you can send to listeners? What is the most astonishing thing you have uncovered?
That, I think, because I always say, in my public lectures, and I'm getting ready to do another one in February in Laughlin, Nevada. I'm going to be speaking there in Laughlin in February 15th. Go on the web and look up Laughlin Convention. It's called the UFO Mega Laughlin Conference. And I'm speaking there to a large audience of people. I think the most astounding thing I have figured out and have seen and been shown, I didn't figure it out, I was told, was where we today, humans, actually came from. It's very, very startling stuff when you find out how you actually got here. Because most people don't ask themselves, where were you? I'm not talking about your body, I'm talking about your personality, the real you, who you are, who laughs at things that you laugh at, who likes the things you like, who likes the colors that you like. Who are you, and where did you come from? And where were you, say, 100,000 years ago? And when you die, where will you be 100,000 years from today in the future? Where will you be? Most people have no idea how they got here, what they're doing here, and when they leave here, where they're going. But the Bible has something to say about that in the first book of Genesis that nobody seems to have seen because we've been purposely misled. We've been purposely misled in the Bible. Genesis 1 in the first chapter tells you the whole story. But it's been purposely mistranslated, misled, so that people today have got all kinds of opinions, but nobody seems to know what the Scripture actually says about our human existence. First of all, in the Bible, I was told this by a high-ranking rabbi many years ago, back in 1960. He said to me, Jordan, nowhere in the Old Testament, the Jewish Old Testament, nowhere does it say God created man. That's your interpretation. Those are your words as a Christian. But there's nothing in the Old Testament that says God created man. And when he explained it to me and showed me, I understood immediately. You're right. There is no place in the Old Testament that God said he created man. First of all, Genesis 1:1 is misinterpreted. It's a misinterpretation. It says in Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It does not say that in Hebrew. Go back and read the Old Testament from the Hebrew Bible and read it in English. It doesn't say in the beginning, God created man. God created the heavens and the earth. The word God is El. E-L in Hebrew is God. El is God in Hebrew. Therefore, you would expect it to say in Hebrew, Genesis 1, in the beginning, El created the heavens and the earth. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say El. It says, actually, in the beginning, Elohim created the heavens and the earth. Elohim is like putting an apostrophe S on an English word, making it more than one. You have C-A-R, or put an S on the end, it becomes cars, more than one. That's what's being said in the Hebrew. Go back and read it in the Old Testament. And it says, in the beginning, the Elohim created the heavens and the earth. What that is correctly translated to mean, in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. Not God, not one God. No, there were many gods. And so when we hear that the Jewish people were the first, Judaism was the first religion to worship only one God. They were a monotheistic religion to worship one God. Nothing could be more false than that. Anyone who has studied history knows the Jews were not monotheistic. They were Heno, H-E-N-O. Simple, look it up. Henotheistic. Theistic means of God. Mono means one God. No, they were not the worshipers of one God. The way it was told me by high-ranking rabbis many years ago in private conversations at the Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies, where I used to sit and talk with the rabbis around a big fireplace for hours, and they would tell me, no, it doesn't say that God created man. It says God created Adam, not Adam, No, you put a different A in it, making it Adam. No, it's not Adam. The Hebrew word is A-D-M. God created A-D-M. Well, what does A-D-M mean? It don't mean man. Man is M-A-N. It don't mean man. God created Adam, and that's why anything before the modern day creation of us, we humans, we would call pre-Adamic man. Adamic man means us. We are Adam. We are the offspring of Adam. ADM simply means a different kind of creature. So therefore, and then when you hear that Jews were the worshippers of one God, the monotheistic, no, they were not. If you take 14 or 18 different gods and all of them are identical, like a game, and you line them all up and then you pick the one you like, and you point out one God in particular, you like him, you like the way he handles himself, what he does, so you like him, well then you make a deal with him, and we're all witnesses to it. You make a deal with him to be his people, and he will be your God. And you made a deal. And so now the deal is simply you are the worshiper of one God. Yeah, the one you just picked. There are 18 of them, but you just picked one, so you are the worshiper of one God. Yeah, the one you picked. That's why in the 10 Commandments, God said to the Israelites, I am the Lord your God, and I will not have foreign gods before me. That's basically what a young man is telling his young fiancée. Yeah, there are other young men out in the world. They're also very handsome, etc. But you got to deal with me. So don't let me catch you out with these other men that are out there. I am jealous of you. Well, that's what the Bible says. God says, I am jealous. I'm a jealous God. Don't let me catch you having any other gods around me and before me. I am number one. As long as you remember that, you're going to do just fine. Yeah.
Beautifully said.
And then when you begin to look at the Old Testament stories that come out of the Bible, Moses, meaning God in the mountain, that's not what the Bible says. It doesn't say Moses met with God. It's an incredible story about how the words have been purposely mistranslated. And the Jewish religion, the Jews, unfortunately, like the Gentiles, have no idea in the world what the words really mean. They're just so used to whatever it is that they believe. They're so used to accepting it. And it's the Jewish way of life. It's the Jewish theology. But they don't realize, no, it's not Jewish theology. The Jews are worshiping different gods at different times. There, first of all, was no Abraham. Abraham never existed. So when you hear that the religions of the Middle East are Abrahamic religions, there was no Abraham. It's a fictitious name that was dreamt up in the land of Canaan. There was no Abraham. He never existed. And his wife was Sarah. No, it goes back to India. There was a priesthood in ancient India called the Brahmins. And if you put an A in front of Brahmin, it becomes Abraham. And so in the Bible, in the Old Testament, it says that Abraham was Abram, A-B-R-A-M. A-B is father, and R-A-M is a ram. And so the worship of the ram god was called Abram. A-B-R-A-M, Abram. And so Abram becomes, later on, God says to Abram, I'm going to change your name and make it Abraham. And so Abraham becomes the new God of the Middle East, Abraham, and his wife was Sarah. No, the wife of Sarah was actually a goddess that is in Egypt, that is in India today. Even today, the Hindus will tell you that the most important priesthood in all of India are the Brahmins. You put an A in front because a Brahmin. And the Brahmins have a goddess that they consider to be most holy. And that goddess in the Brahmin religion is called Saraswati. Saraswati. There was a river called the Saraswati River. So what we have is a Brahmin and Sarah. Abraham and Sarah. A Brahmin, Saraswati. They have male and female gods of the ancient Hindus. But there was no Abraham or Sarah. Never existed. Just a story.
Very interesting, George. Well, we can continue down this incredible road that you're enlightening us and taking us on. We're coming to a close here on Discuss the Truth. We thank you for joining the program. I thank you for your time on Windward Radio. You've given so many things for listeners to think about, and you've educated in so many different areas. In a parting thought for you to share your opinion on, and to close out this show, I'd like you to express to listeners your feel and your thought and opinion on human microchipping.
Oh, yeah. Well, what a story. But like I said, we are considered to be animals. We are a business. And we have to have a certificate of manifest. And so if you have, and every television that comes through into America has its own little microchip, so that they can identify where this TV came from, who made it, how much was it, and what date would it come in, etc. So that's what they're doing with you. They're just microchipping you because you are a maritime admiralty product. You came out of your mother's water, just like the ships that brought in the $800 million worth of Toyotas. Those Toyotas came out of water. Your mother was a ship that brought in the water. And so therefore you are a maritime admiralty product, and they are now chipping you. They're using you all around the world. They're just trying to speed up the process. So if they don't have a piece of paper called a birth certificate, they won't need it. It's all on computer now. It's all computerized. Your number is out there in a computer, and this is the best way to do banking. Because I have found that that's spelled ALL, all banking on the earth is done overnight between the satellites. All banking on the earth is done overnight in the satellites of the earth at nighttime. They're exchanging all kinds of digital numbers and digital names, etc. in the banking. And so the banks are paying each other. It's an incredible story about how business works on the earth. And so I like you said, there's so many things I would like to talk about. I haven't even scratched the surface about how we are animals and we are owned. Because according to the laws that came out of England when this country was being founded, the land, whoever owned the piece of land not only owned that land, but he owned all things on that land. All the trees that were on that land, the owner of the land owned those trees. All the animals, the dogs and cats and all the animals on that land, he owned them all. It's on his land, and he owns the land, therefore he owns all life on it. From birds to trees to bushes to animals, he owns it all. So therefore you are on the land, and therefore you are owned. You're part of a corporation that owns the land, and they own you.
Sounds like a monarchy.
Yep, that's true. And everybody has to crawl on their knees and beat themselves with sackcloth and ashes when they see the Queen Mom. Oh my God, how holy she is, the Queen Mom. And she's so holy. And we just love the Queen Mom. Yeah. If you even knew one half of what she is into, it would frighten you to death. So anyway, it would be nice if we could, I guess I would lead the program by saying this. Go on my website. I have been working for 60 years trying to collect knowledge and ideas and concepts and belief systems to show the people where they all came from. And if I were you, go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show. Don't forget to add the word show, because there are other websites out there that do not belong to me, but have my name on them. People are trying to make money off of me. But my website is Jordan Maxwell Show, and when you go there, you will see an article, a link pointing to something called Jordan Maxwell Research website. I have decided quite a few years ago to take all of the research of pictures and documents, white papers, research papers, all kinds of lectures and teachers, and people who are talking about really strange things that people have never heard of before. I have collected all of that up and put it onto a website called Jordan Maxwell Research Society. And that you have to join. It's not free. It's a one-time small token donation, a one-time small token donation for a lifetime to my research material. And I have a really brilliant young man who is my webmaster. And he is working around the clock the best he can because he's got a life of his own. But he's working to get all of my materials, everything I've ever done. I've got tons of stuff in boxes, scanning it in and putting it out on the web for people to read and study and listen to the lectures. And it's all on my research. And so I was told by my lawyer friends, some of my lawyer friends that the kind of information you're putting out on this research website, you might want to be very careful about what you're doing, because this kind of information, if you were to just put it out to the public for free, you could cause yourself some serious problems, because some of the stuff you're talking about there, nobody's ever heard of. They don't know that they're not aware that these documents exist, and you're putting it into black and white for people to read and see what it means, and therefore you could be looking at some serious trouble by the powers that be. And so I was told by my lawyers, if you were to make this information into a private, personal, and private organization, because if you go into a restaurant with 10 people and you're sitting in the back of the restaurant with the 10 friends, you can say whatever you want. You can use any terms you want, call anybody, any words you want, call them anything you please to call them. But if you go out in the public the next day, in public, and start talking the same way you did last night at the table, that's different. Now you're talking about the public is hearing you. And that's the one thing governments are empowered to do, is to protect the public. Why? From you, from the words you're using, the incredible, nasty stuff you're saying about people. And so the government has laws. You can't go out in public and say those things on radio or television. And so, therefore, the public is protected. And so you, if you want to know the real truth, I've got some incredible documentation on things you've never heard of before. It's on my research website. But in order to protect myself, I have to make it personal, private. So you have to want to join, because if anybody wants to go and read some of the stuff I've got and then go complain to government, with Jordan Maxwell saying this is that I've never heard this crazy stuff. Well, the government can't do anything to me because it was private and you wanted to know it, so you paid money up front to join. So there's nothing can be done about it. You knew what you were getting when you went in, and you did it anyway. And so that protects me, and believe me, I need protection because I've been doing this for some 60 years. I've got stuff out there right now that'll blow your mind on my research website. You have to join the research website and you will see stuff there, hear lectures there, and see documents there that you're not going to believe. I've got stuff on there that I would be scared to death to put out into the public because I know other people have done it and they're in prison, they're in jail. I make it into a private research society, and there's nothing anybody can do about private conversation. If I go to a restaurant with you and 10 other people, and I'm using all kinds of foul language, calling people names, derogatory names, I'm being covered by the laws of America. This is private conversation. And if the people I'm sitting with don't mind hearing me rant and rave with cursing and rant and raving about people, and if you don't mind hearing that, then that's private. Nobody can do anything to me. I'm just expressing my opinion. But if I go out on radio tomorrow and do the same thing on public radio, now that's different. Now you're talking about the public. Now there are laws against using those words and things on the radio and television. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I have a separate website called Jordan Maxwell Research website. And you have to join it. One time, a small one-time donation gives you a lifetime of all of my stuff. And I'm only putting so much on every day as I can because that's my webmaster's job. And he has a life of his own, and he's doing the best he can to keep putting new stuff out every day. So if I were you, go on Jordan Maxwell's show and join my Research Society website. You'll be surprised the stuff you're going to see there no one's ever told you before. I talk a lot about Hollywood, motion pictures, movies, law, maritime admiralty law, showing pictures and diagrams and how it works and what the major studios are doing, the symbols of the major studios, where they come from and what they actually mean.
A lot of esoteric things, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Ladies and gentlemen, Jordan Maxwell. Jordan, thank you for joining Discuss the Truth and your time on Wynwood Radio. We look forward to inviting you back on the program. Best of luck at the conference next month in Laughlin.
Look, I would love to come back on, because if your audience really wants to know, that's big with me. I want to talk to the people who want to know, because there's so many people who are entertained by trivia, by the trivia stuff. I'm not interested in entertaining anybody. I'm a teacher. If you really want to know what's really going on and you can handle it, like that movie, A Few Good Men,
right?
When Tom Cruise and the guy on the stand said, "What are you doing? What do you want from me?" He said, "I want the truth." He said, "You can't handle the truth."
Right, yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying today. You want the real truth? Yeah, go on my research website and join it. And then you will begin to see unfolding in front of you pictures and documents on all kinds of subjects. The different people I highly recommend that you know about, I give you their pictures, their names, their address, their phone numbers, where they are, and where to find them on the web. And I give you the links of people that I think are just absolutely incredibly brilliant and telling people things that nobody's ever heard. I make them all available to you on my website. You just go on and click on these different people and listen to them, and they'll blow your mind.
All right.
So that's what I do.
All right.
And I would be delighted to come back on anytime you wish.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And therefore, until next time.
Yes.
Thank you, Jordan.
Hopefully there will be next time. Thank you. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
2020 is the beginning of an entirely new decade, a whole new age of humanity. As a matter of fact, so many things have been estimated to happen in 2020 which will change the entire direction of where we go as a civilization, but today I'm going to unfortunately have to stifle all of that with the actual hard truth and reality. 2020. What will happen in this year? What will make this year the absolute worst year that we've ever experienced? So far, we're off to a rocky start into the beginning of this year. It's only been January and then a couple of days into February as of the making of this video, but yet, we have experienced things that we have probably not expected to experience in many, many decades, let alone just one single year. The closest point that we've ever been to an almost complete breakout to nuclear war between different countries, which could have made World War III happen and turn into fruition. The rising tensions because of this also making things more difficult to come into the future as well, regardless of many other things that we're going to be talking about. So you may be thinking to yourself, I think 2020 is going to be the best year ever because so-and-so said this will happen, or this is going to happen, or this is supposed to happen, or this news source said this is going to happen. But the problem is, everything is always directed towards the upside. No one wants anything bad to be circulated, and no one wants panic or out is going to happen. But the problem is, everything is always directed towards the upside. No one wants anything bad to be circulated, and no one wants panic or outrage to happen all throughout society. Namely, the most prominent place where society likes to propagate and enjoy themselves on, the internet. What you're watching right now, YouTube, one of the biggest websites on this internet. But I can assure you that because of this system of false hope that we've all kind of gotten ourselves into, there's going to be lots of surprises up in store for us. January 2020. World War III almost started as a nuclear airstrike was initiated over the country of Iran. This was the closest point on the nuclear arsenal clock, the doomsday clock, which indicates how close humanity is, relatively speaking, to going completely extinct or experiencing some kind of extinction event. Almost 90 seconds before midnight as this happened. This has risen the tension between the world's most powerful supernation known as the United States and the Middle East, higher than that than ever before. The breakout of the 2019 nCoV virus, the coronavirus, which is a strain of the common cold flu virus which has never been seen before. There is absolutely no adaptivity to humans within the immune system that we currently have, and there is absolutely no natural remedies or any kind of treatment that could help cure it. It is 100% immune to every single kind of thing we throw at it. Numbers of this virus has been argued across many countries and across many aspects of the internet, but it is commonly assured that the virus's numbers have been greatly throttled by the actual countries of where it exists in. It is mathematically estimated that despite the relatively low numbers of infected patients of this virus, that there are currently over 4 to 10 million total people in the world that are infected with this. So why is this such a big deal? Well, in case you weren't paying attention in your 9th grade algebra class, there's something called an exponential function, something of which goes up exponentially and which is also known as a straight line in the logarithmic function. This means that more and more people will get infected as the virus gets more and more infectious, which will inevitably make the virus even more prone to getting more people and reaching every single possible corner of the globe that there is to get to. This is measured in the R0 scale, which is something that determines how likely it is for a virus to spread. Currently, the nCoV 2019 virus is at a 4.1 estimated R0 level, which basically means that if it continues on its upwards projection, it will estimatedly infect around 2.5 billion people. The estimated death tolls of this are obviously highly arguable, but it is estimated that the actual death rate of this virus could be anywhere between 2 and upwards of 10%. But it will get even worse if the current scenario keeps playing on, of which I have mapped out for the future of this year. I have no intentions of spreading ill will or negativity across the internet, of course, but I think it's highly important to discuss the more likely scenarios of the deadly future that may lie ahead for us. We know what happens during pandemics like this, when billions of people are infected without even knowing about it. The sovereign nations and superpowers that have every single ability to try to do anything about it will do everything in their power to cut down on the spread of this virus, leading into the discontinuation of trade and natural economic resources that commonly take place in every single day life. The major areas of production for all of the valuation of the United States' product and commercial economy, mainly being that of China, which is unfortunately coincidentally where this virus is being most prominent, will most likely be cut off, meaning that the United States economy is going to be highly likely to produce an extremely high retracement within this year. The S&P 500, the largest economic index of the entire world, encapsulating around $26.5 trillion in valuation, is estimated to go through a 70% or more retracement, more or less being triggered by the actual economic collapse, which will be initiated by the COVID-19 virus. Even if the lack of trade and the economic downfall because of this virus isn't directly responsible for the collapse of the United States economy, the actual statistics themselves definitely will. The valuation of the S&P 500 is highly defined by simply the amount of companies that are within it. The top Fortune 500 companies, which harbor the most amount of money out of any other institution in the entire world. Tens of trillions of dollars are valued within these top companies, which also are responsible for the top trading of products around the entire world itself. This is one of the most important things for the ecosystem of the world, considering 99% of all relationships between countries rely on their trading factors. How many products can we get from this country to send to us so that we can sell to our people? China being the world headquarters of such. Made in China? Well, maybe not anymore. As the United States stock market goes into a parabolic cycle, it's eventually going to collapse 100% more than what it did last time in 2008. The retracement of that period being more than 50%. But we've never seen any kind of cycle within the United States economy that's been this drastic since 1929, followed by the early 1930s. And I'm pretty sure we all know what happened then. At the current rate, the statistics predict a 100% chance of the next economic fallout being almost as devastating as the Great Depression. Regardless of the fact of whether or not you have any interest in stonks or anything of that nature, this will definitely affect you regardless of your age, where you live, or any kind of other social status. Your parents' money will be highly affected by this. The companies, the money of which produces the valuable materials in your life that you use on a daily basis, the prices of natural necessities and resources that you consume regularly, and the medical associations and the institutions that provide the assistance for people that are suffering from potentially deadly illnesses, such as the coronavirus. This kind of an economic collapse or the retracement of 70% of every single thing in the United States economy that we see today could lead to an even more devastating spread of an unstoppable pandemic within this country. Financial crises are definitely not a good combination with any sort of pandemic illness which is threatening tens of millions of people's lives. If in the worst case scenario these two things line up as the coronavirus eventually spreads into the United States, affecting the greater population, we could see a mass outbreak of the deadly strains of the virus mutate as less medical assistance will be available due to the financial crisis. This could raise the death toll of the virus to upwards of 30%. And if the infectivity of the virus stays the same as I mentioned before, this could lead to over 50 to 100 million people dying, which will make this virus even more deadly and devastating than the world's previously most devastating virus, the Spanish flu, all happening within the next 11 months. Furthermore, the more prominent examples of humanity's advancements, such as the space industries that are funded by the government, such as NASA, and privately owned space companies, such as SpaceX, that are ran by other billionaires that are also relying on the prosperity of the economy, will be highly cut off. Due to this kind of a financial fallout, it's very likely that things such as all of the advancement that we have planned for this year in space, such as Mars missions, will have to be delayed or canceled in total, along with the loss of all the funding of the companies and organizations that are attempting to mediate the drastic change of climate. The more likely thing to occur will be the exact opposite of what we would want to happen. As the prosperity of the US economy dwindled, all the rest of the world's economies would probably follow along suit. We would rely less on the more natural forms of energy, such as wind energy, solar energy, due to the fact of how much less efficient and profitable it would be compared to just simply going back to plain industrialization. As a matter of fact, this next stock market correction could literally send us back to the Stone Age in terms of our industrial advancements, leading to an onslaught of even more pollution, that of what we've never even seen before. And whether you feel like you have any personal connection with any of these issues or not, they are all-encompassing factors which control the entire livelihood of everyone on this planet, including you, watching this one video on YouTube.com, a conglomerate that's owned by one of the largest companies on Earth, known as Alphabet. Yes, that's right, Alphabet. Not Google, but Alphabet, the second most valuable company aside from Apple itself. Websites and major corporations that control lots of fun and interesting entertainment platforms such as YouTube will become scarce and endangered as this whole situation unfolds. In the most drastic of circumstances and the worst case scenarios, lots of these platforms will unfortunately have to go out of business and in bankruptcy as 2020 unfolds. And lots of these fun companies that offered you these awesome products that you thought would never have any chance of losing money or losing the ability to stay around will actually go extinct before your very eyes. Starting with the smallest of companies which can barely even afford the payments to sustain their actual rent, all the way up to the biggest companies that produce billions of dollars per year, such as that of YouTube. YouTube itself, despite it having the most profitable year in history in 2019, has generated Alphabet a negative decline within its stock price due to the controversy that the website's been in recent years. So YouTube is actually causing Google and its parent company, Alphabet, to lose money, which means that along with everything that's going to happen in this year on top of everything else, YouTube will either have to do one of two things: completely shut down or redefine and reestablish their entire way of business, because otherwise there's no possible way that it could stay profitable and therefore keep on existing. On the topic of the internet and everyone who uses it, we have other all-encompassing issues such as the passing of Article 13, also known as Article 17 as it was renamed that later on, and the abolishment of net neutrality, which are all supposed to take place within 2020. Article 13, which was renamed Article 17, passed official legislation in 2019 and will take approximately 18 months in total to be fully integrated within the internet, creating it impossible for anyone to make any content on the internet without having the overlooming threat of being copyright striked or infringed by other companies, since no actual piece of content on the internet is unique, which means 99% of everyone who produces the content, whether it be from one individual person making a commentary channel producing a gameplay footage of a game which doesn't actually belong to the person making the video itself, all the way to the biggest companies that run the most popular websites that host a piece of content that wasn't produced by them. Everything is endangered because of this one article, which is estimated to be fully passed and in full function by the end of 2020, which means the internet as you know it will no longer be what it is. Net neutrality being a prerequisite of Article 13 itself, basically allowing any ISP, also known as the providers of the internet, to control it in any way that they please, charging people for full amount of service for access to different websites, and being able to charge any website that runs on the internet as much money as they want in order to keep running. This will also cause many businesses and websites to go out of business, and once again, no, not just some random hole-in-the-wall website that's viewed by 3,000 people a month. We're talking about websites that could be viewed by tens of millions, possibly even billions of people per month, that simply cannot survive under these new rules, along with the economic conditions that are going to be soon to follow this year. The internet was and is one of humanity's biggest advancements in terms of communication, and it is slowly being disassembled before our eyes unless we are able to do something about it soon, because this year is not that much time. 365 days, but actually around 334 days as of the recording of this video itself, meaning that we have even less than when we started. Don't worry, before you panic, I want to make it clear that this is not going to be the end of the world, and I'm not casting some Mayan calendar 2012 Michael Bay movie plot on you, by any means. This year definitely will be one of the most eventful years of all of human history, but maybe not for the best of reasons, as we can clearly tell after watching this video. The doomsday clock clicks ever more towards midnight, which will be the time of where humanity ceases to exist. Right now, as of January 31st, 2020, it is only 100 seconds away, and is estimated to reach only 1 minute away by the end of this year, making it the closest it's ever been to midnight since its inception, and that even goes as far back as the brink of World War II and the Cold War. So are we as a civilization going to be making good progress this year? Well, it depends on the way you look at it, but I'm just trying to prepare you and let you know about the things that will happen, whether you think they're good or not. We are in store for a lot of issues, but we're also in store for a lot of good things as well. So don't think it's all just bad. By the end of the day, 2020 will be a long ride, and we're just getting started, so buckle up your seatbelts, because it's happening whether you like it or not.